Hey guys, it's Krebs and welcome back to War Thunder. So with the recent addition of the British ground forces to the game, we've gotten introduced to a variety of unique vehicles, and one of these in particular has to be the Archer. You know the one that I'm talking about, the one with the gun that's rear facing. Overall, I would say that the tank is fine, but I see a lot of people, a lot of players struggling to get kills in it and top the leaderboards, and I too was confused about it when I first started to take it out. Now, players are coming up with different ways in which to work around its supposed limitations, but of course you can't always rely on people to tug you around the battlefield. Now, the point I'd like to make to all current and potential Archer drivers out there is you have to realize that in-game and historically, vehicles like the Archer were bound to a certain method of fighting. In reality, this meant lying in wait to ambush the enemy, but in War Thunder, waiting around will usually produce little to no fruit. What really turns the Archer around from a relatively slow pillbox to a blockade on the enemy's front line is accepting that certain vehicles are limited in their effectiveness to certain maps and even to particular scenarios within those maps. Just as you wouldn't be inclined to take out a bomber, say, in arcade air domination, or a vehicle with poor gun depression on a map of hilly terrain, or even taking, say, a turretless tank on an urban map with multiple flanking streets, taking out the Archer on every map in a scenario and expecting it to excel will leave you, well, quickly disappointed. What I'm going to do over the coming clips, starting off with how the Archer shouldn't be used, is explaining what maps and scenarios the Archer does well in. So this clip that you're watching right now is a prime example of how the Archer can quickly lag behind the rest of the team on the leaderboard by just simply going out onto a map and also a scenario that it does not excel well in. And that you're watching right now is Stalingrad on the battle scenario in realistic battles. So in general, in battles, what you'll have is 2 points of contention. You have your own point to defend, and ours is in the center on our side, and the enemy point, which is on the center on their side. Now, those are the prime areas, but it doesn't go to say that you have to go directly towards them. Many times, and especially on Stalingrad, people go from multiple flanks. And this is not ideal for the Archer at all. What you want is people coming to you in a flow towards you in one general direction, not from multiple flanks, but one general direction, because unfortunately this vehicle has rather poor traverse speeds, but also a rather bad arc on its gun as well. So you'll find yourself often that the rest of the tank has to move with the gun in order to align with the target that you're looking at. So whenever you can try to limit yourself to the people being in front of you that you're going to see in the clips coming, then that is perfect. That is what you're trying to aim for. And unfortunately, Stalingrad does not fit into that category. And I was hoping by going on the southern flank that this would happen, that, you know, they'd be coming towards me. But of course, it being realistic battles, you just don't know if people are gonna be in a location or not. So what this clip is all about is just giving you an example of all the time wasting that can happen in this vehicle. Setting yourself up, moving around, waiting, and then there not being anything, as it happened to me. But also, it was just in general not a good idea to go down along this way in this vehicle, because look at what's about to happen. How did I end up dying? It was simply because there was a guy on the flank, but he was behind me. So it just goes to show you that so many areas to cover on the southern area. You'd think that, you know, they would be coming from one general direction, but they're not. There's actually multiple areas that they could come from. So many obstructions, so many hills, so much buildings that they could be behind. You just don't know. And hence why I say you need to know in this vehicle that the enemies are in front of you and you can situate yourself like a blockade. So then you might be asking, well, okay, Krebs, I understand that this vehicle does not do well on certain maps and scenarios, but what maps and scenarios does it do well on? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's what I'm going to answer in this clip and the next one. Conquest is the most ideal scenario you're looking for, because the enemies and also your team are struggling for 1 point, and this often means that there is a flow of enemies from one general direction. Not always, there could be also enemies going off on extreme flanks, but usually most of them are going directly towards the point, and that is exactly what you want when using this vehicle. You want the enemies to be coming in front of you and not flanking. Now, Poland in general is not the best of maps for this vehicle. However, there are exceptions on maps, areas on maps where this tank actually excels very well in. And the one place on Poland is here on the main road. Usually there are enemies that cross in front of your path, in front of your eyes, your sights, on this main road. They might even work their way down the main road, and this is perfect for you as the archer because it means that you have minimal movement. You can just wait for the enemies to come down along the road or cross its path. Likewise, because it's so early on into the game, it's highly unlikely you're going to get flanked from the side from an enemy. You've got a lot of teammates alive still and protecting those flanks. So that's exactly what I did here. I set up on the main road, just taking up positions, and this is advantageous because I get to just sit here, but also look at how I've got my teammates up ahead. Teammates are very useful in these situations because not only do they soak up shells essentially because they're closer to the front line, but they also give you an idea of what's going on up ahead. If they're firing at an enemy or an enemy's firing at you, then you know that there's somebody over there. And that's how I ended up killing my first target. I just seen my teammates shooting in that general direction. I've seen fire coming towards my teammates from that direction, and not actually seeing directly what was going on. I decided to take a shot, and well, it ended up killing stuff. And that's exactly what's happening over here as well, and what you're going to see in the next few kills as well. That I don't have direct sight of my enemies. I mean, I have a general idea that they're there because they're firing at my teammates, but just getting an idea of where that fire is coming from, I shoot into that general direction and it kills them. Now I'm getting a little bit worried here because it looks like my front line has kind of dissipated. They've gone on to A, they've gotten off the main road, and this Churchill in front of me, well, it really looks like he's taking a beating, and he is definitely dead. And the last thing I want to do, or to happen to me, is I don't want to be shot by some autocannons. That is clearly a rapid fire autocannon, probably an SPAA of some sorts, and knowing my kind of enemies that I'm up against, that's going to be a Gepard. So the last thing I want to do is be on the receiving end of a Gepard because I have almost next to no armor in the Archer, like 20 millimeters or so. As you can imagine, that's easily penetrable. So what I'm going to do is back off, and I've got really good movement whilst I'm backing off because remember, this tank is reversed in a way. It has a rear-facing gun where the front is towards the front you actually accelerate and have the fastest movement speed, so I can get away very quickly, and I opted to go inside this little crater. And given the low profile of this vehicle, that helps to work to my advantage. And so you can see that I finished off a number of people and actually got 4 kills in the space of a few minutes. Well, you know how I said that Conquest was the best mode to go out with in this vehicle? Well, I lied. It's not that I lied, but it was more of a half-truth, and in anything, it's more of an exception to the rulebook. What I want to try to drill into you guys that the rulebook is always good to go by, but there are exceptions to the rule book where you can just throw it out completely. For example, this is Carpathian's Domination. And the reason why I've gone onto the top of the hill is for the exact same reason that I pointed out in the last clip, where the enemy flows in front of me. This is what can happen. The enemy can come on top of the hill and I can try to kill them as they come on top of the hill. And if that doesn't happen, if for some reason they just don't want the hill, then I can turn around and go into a sniping position and cover the other points on the map. Now, what ended up happening, as you're going to see, is that the enemies did want to push up on the hill. That is absolutely fine and ideal for me, because what usually tends to happen is that when enemies are approaching this hill on Carpathians, they tend to come on the western flank and not from the north. They don't like making their way around. They want to go the most direct route, and that is ideal for me because it means I don't have to worry about my flanks or covering myself, so to say. Now I see that my teammates are dying in front of me, and this gives me an idea that yes, there are people that are coming on top of the hill. There are bad people coming on top of the hill that I'm going to have to be worried of. I'm just slightly adjusting here to get cover beside the wall because I want to try to protect my rear as much as possible. The last thing I want is somebody shooting me from behind, and so hence why I'm covering the wall as much as possible to reduce my profile, my rear profile, that is. So after taking out a Sherman, I see an SU-122 up ahead, and they are so easy to kill. You just aim on the right hand side, you can quickly knock out a gunner, it can't fire back at you, you can even knock out a driver, and because it's a turretless vehicle, then it can really get into trouble if its driver is not functioning and moving it around. So all I'm gonna do is just wait in this area because I know enemies are making their way up towards this place. I can also see on the mini-map where my teammates have highlighted the enemies that there are enemies in this proximity, this zone, so I do have to be careful. And so this is where this vehicle is really ideal. Bam, there was another enemy coming on up. That third person can really help sometimes to see around corners and anticipate where enemies are coming. A snapshot right into the upper plate, directly into his crew, taking out him in one shot. That's more than ideal. And now you might be getting an idea of how to use the archer. There are just certain places or certain maps, certain scenarios where it just does not excel well in. What you want is the enemy to be flowing to you in one direction, so you don't have to worry about enemies from the flank. Look at these guys. They did end up coming on the flank, but they went extremely far on the flank, all the way around so that they went onto C. They didn't even know I existed in this area. At least I would assume they didn't know I existed. And so I could turn around on them whilst they were busy on my teammates who were, I guess, progressing up along the hill. I managed to get in a well-placed shot into their side and take him out. Now there is still one more enemy around this location, but I don't exactly know what's happening to him. He's kind of backing off behind cover, so I've got to worry about my other side because he doesn't, at the moment, as far as I know, he isn't aware of myself. And so I want to be cautious of what's actually going on up ahead. And now what's really good about Carpathians and being on top of this hill is that as soon as you killed the enemies, the invaders, who are trying to get on the hill themselves, then you can start working your way down it. And that's the brilliant thing about this position. Once you've killed the enemies up here, it literally is working your way up, down, so to say. So you kill the guys up here, and then you can start shooting people down below. And so what you're going to see is that I'm going to be moving into position over to the outside of the castle, and just slowly, gradually making my way there. Some people might be tempted to turn around and just move quickly, but of course, this being realistic battles, you have no idea what's up ahead. And so I'd rather take my time slowly to engage the enemy. Now I'm just being very wary of there being anything else. And I can see something. Look at that. I could see him, but when I go into my tag site, I can't see him. So obviously something to do with the tree sites and the foliage. But there you go. He's appeared out of the shrubbery. And so I get a well-placed shot just into the middle of the upper plate, and that knocks out his gunner and driver, so he isn't moving, he isn't able to fire back at me. And then I finish him off with a shot more to the left. Of course, just looking out for more targets. The binoculars are brilliant for this. Look at that. Normally I wouldn't be able to spot people so well, but with the binoculars you get a great vantage point above the vehicle, and then you can see opponents around the area. And so that M13, aiming specifically for the front because that's where he has two guys, and then I can knock him out in one shot, but also we can disable him by taking out his engine, but my teammate ended up getting it. So I ended up getting 5 kills in this match and topping the leaderboard, but I wanted to use these clips as an example of the kind of mindset that you should be aiming for when taking out the archer, and even just in a broader scope as well, in general, when you should be taking out vehicles, because Gaijin has given us so many crew slots for a reason. There's a reason why you can take out so many tanks into a battle. It's so that you can decide when and where what vehicle fits to a particular scenario on a map. And so I leave it now to you guys. I hope you guys have found this informative. I hope you enjoyed this. And until the next one, this is Krebs, and I'll catch you guys later.